Right.
Okay, we're good.
Sounds good. All right. Welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to join us for this workshop, Working Towards Positive Educational Outcomes, Mental Health, and Special Education. I want to mention that this workshop is made possible in part by funding from the Minnesota Department of Education. In this presentation, we will cover a lot of information, and we know it can be overwhelming at times to navigate the special education process. Know that we are here to help, and we encourage you to call PACER and talk to an advocate if you have any questions or need help working through a specific situation with your child. Next slide. Before we get started, just a little bit about PACER. PACER is a trusted source of information, training, and support for families of children with disabilities. Our services help families and youth navigate special education and other complex systems, discover assistive technology solutions, and access bullying prevention resources. We're the only organization in Minnesota that provides support for families of children and young adults with any disability from birth to age 26. Next slide. My name's Karen Malka, and I am an advocate here at PACER, and I'm also the coordinator of the Children's Mental Health Project here at PACER. I've been here a little over 3 years, and I have 2 daughters of my own who live with mental health and learning disabilities. Jeannie, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jeannie. I work alongside Karen at PACER in the Children's Mental Health Department. We've been here for about the same amount of time. We started almost at exactly the same time. I'm the parents of 2 now young adult kids who are on IEPs for a few different disability-related needs, including some mental health needs. So it's great to be here with you today.
All right, I'm gonna start presenting the presentation, and then Jeannie will follow me. All right, here we go. Today we're going to talk about the special education process, working with your child's IEP team to address mental health and behaviors, provide you with some examples of positive supports and interventions, and how to navigate disagreements using dispute resolution options. Next slide. Understanding the special education process. Next slide. Let's start today with an overview of the special education process. School districts are obligated to identify students they suspect may have a disability and are in need of special education services. This law is called Child Find. Anytime school staff or parents have concerns that a child may have a disability that impacts the student's ability to access their education, they can request a special education evaluation. As advocates, we recommend parents put the request in writing and include observations about how your child is struggling at school. Once the district receives your request for evaluation, they must respond to you in a document called a prior written notice, or PWN, either agreeing or refusing to evaluate. If they agree, they will invite you to discuss your concerns and will develop a proposed evaluation plan. If they refuse, they must state in the prior written notice the reasons why they are refusing and provide you with the option to disagree with their decision. If you disagree, you can use the prior written notice to request a dispute resolution meeting, which we will discuss later. Parental consent is required for initial evaluations and to begin services for an initial IEP. Once parents sign consent for evaluation, the IEP team has 30 school days to complete the process and share the results with you in an evaluation review meeting. At this meeting, parents, as members of the IEP team, work together with school staff to determine if the child is eligible for IEP services under one or more of 13 disability categories. If the student does meet criteria for special education, the team will draft an IEP based on the needs identified in the evaluation. They have 30 school days to draft the initial IEP proposal. The team will document your child's present levels of academic achievement and functional performance to describe their educational needs. From there, the team will discuss what skills your child needs to build and practice. They will propose goals and objectives with instructional strategies that can be achieved over the next year. Once goals are identified, the team will determine how much service time will be required for the child to make adequate progress on their goals. Finally, the team will decide on the appropriate educational placement for your child. Placement is determined based on the percentage of time a student receives special educational services outside of the general education setting. The district must ensure that students have access to a free and appropriate public education, also known as FAPE, in the least restrictive environment, also referred to as LRE. Next slide. The school's evaluation process should utilize a variety of assessment tools and strategies to gather relevant academic and developmental information, including information from parents. Evaluations are intended to be comprehensive, and schools must use more than one assessment or measure to determine eligibility for services. There is no way to know if a child will qualify for special education services without first completing a comprehensive evaluation that includes assessments that will address all concerns. Next slide. The special education process is designed to protect the right to a free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment for children and youth identified as students with a disability. As we've mentioned, the purpose of evaluation is to determine two things. One, eligibility, and two, identifying a student's educational needs. Students with mental health needs must qualify under one or more of 13 disability categories. Students with behavioral health challenges may qualify for a 504 plan if they don't qualify for special education. If the parent disagrees with the school's evaluation, they have a right to request what's called an independent education evaluation, or IEE. We'll talk more about this later. Next slide. A functional behavior assessment, or FBA, can be completed as a standalone assessment when new behavior concerns arise, or it can be completed as part of the special education comprehensive evaluation to address behaviors that get in the way of the student's learning or the learning of others. An FBA should help the IEP team find ways to positively support a child at school. These assessments are often completed by the school psychologist or a behavior specialist in the school district. Information should be gathered from a variety of sources for an FBA, including behavior or incident reports, formal and informal observations, input from parents, educators, and the student, input from other team members, and related assessments that may provide information relevant to the concerns or needs of the child. For example, when a student has high sensory needs, the team might choose to include input from an occupational therapist to help them better understand the impact these needs have on behaviors. The FBA should identify the behavior that is causing the concern, behavioral triggers, functions of the behavior, which means what is behind the behavior, which needs might the student be trying to meet through their behavior, desired replacement behaviors, and supports and strategies to help the student learn the replacement behaviors and build skills needed to make progress. Next slide. If a child has challenges with behavior at school, the IEP team can use the information in the FBA to develop a proactive and preventative plan to reduce or eliminate the challenging behavior, creating an obstacle to a child's learning. Positive behavioral interventions take place before the onset of challenging behaviors, before behavioral escalation, or to prevent the behaviors from reoccurring. Components of a positive behavior support plan should address the setting and events that may trigger behaviors, remove behavioral triggers and actions that maintain or escalate unsafe behaviors, remove consequences or actions that maintain or escalate unsafe behavior, add antecedents and consequences that support appropriate behavior, and teach appropriate behaviors, including the opportunity to learn and practice self-regulation. Next slide. Although the format of an IEP may vary from district to district, state and federal laws require several content areas to be included in every IEP. These areas include present levels of academic and functional performance, measurable annual IEP goals, transition planning when a student reaches the appropriate age, related services, accommodations, and modifications, an explanation of the student's least restrictive environment, state accountability and graduation assessments, and extended school year. Our PACER website and YouTube channel contain additional information about the components of the IEP, so be sure to check out these resources. You can also contact PACER to speak with an advocate to learn more about the components of the IEP. Next slide. Communicating needs related to mental health with your IEP team. Next slide. As you plan to discuss questions and concerns about your student with the IEP team, you want to be aware that the school must include these core members in IEP team discussions. You as the parent are a team member. The team must also include a special education teacher, a general education teacher, a district representative, and the student if or when they are able to attend. The student is required to attend once they reach transition age. If a core member will be unavailable to attend an IEP meeting, you must be notified. You can choose to excuse them or request that the meeting be rescheduled so that all team members can be present. Others with knowledge of your child and their needs may also be invited to an IEP team meeting by the school or the parent. For example, if your child works with a school social worker, a DAPE instructor, or occupational therapist, they may be included in the meeting. When behaviors are a concern, the school psychologist or a behavior specialist may be working with the team to discuss options to meet emotional behavioral needs. As the parent, you have the right to invite others who have knowledge of your child, such as an outside therapist, county case manager, or a friend or relative who can help you by taking notes and providing support. Next slide. So what roles do school staff members play as part of the IEP team? Each staff member brings their own set of skills, training, and experience to the IEP team. Administrators may fill the role of district representative as they have knowledge of district rules and available resources. They also support teachers and others working with students with disabilities. Both the general education and special education teachers help your child make educational progress in their content areas. The special education teacher communicates with parents and other staff working with your student. Support staff can work with students to assist with academic, medical, or social emotional needs. Next slide. Parents play a critical role in helping a child succeed at school. Just like being a member of any other team, your involvement is active, not passive. Your knowledge and opinions guide your advocacy as you set high but reasonable expectations for short and long-term success. As the parent, you know your child better than anyone else, and you are the only continuous member of your child's IEP team. You hold several responsibilities in the special education process to effectively support your child. These include continuing to learn about your child's disability. This helps you and the team to support your student successfully. Provide school staff with insights, observations, and recommendations that you feel are necessary for the team to consider as you work together to develop or amend your child's IEP. Set high expectations and communicate what you feel your child can achieve to the team. Support your child's educational progress at home. Learn about your rights and how to effectively participate in the special education process to make educational decisions for your child. Share what is important to you and to your child with the team. Ask questions. The special education process is complex. It can be overwhelming. You should always feel confident about asking questions or requesting clarification. It can be helpful to plan your questions and statements of concern ahead of time to ensure you are able to communicate with them with clarity. Learn about your child's educational records, such as the IEP, evaluation, and IEP progress reports. Organize and maintain these documents so that you can easily access them when needed. Your child's educational data creates a critical foundation for your advocacy. When schools and parents work together as partners, students are more likely to make progress. Your active role on the team is a top priority. Next slide. The key to effective advocacy with the IEP team is preparation. Plan important points you'd like to discuss and questions you'd like to ask ahead of the meeting. Additionally, think about possible solutions you can propose for the team to consider. What does your child need that isn't currently being provided? What do you feel will work to support your child? What won't work? Do they need a visual schedule to help them stay on task? Do they need assistance with transitioning from one activity to another, or help to adjust to unexpected schedule changes? Are there words or strategies that you know are likely to trigger a problem that the team should be aware of? It can be helpful to prioritize your concerns ahead of the meeting and check them off as they are resolved. This helps to ensure the team addresses your primary concerns or questions in the allotted meeting time. If time runs out before you're able to address all agenda items, you'll have used the time to focus on the most urgent topics and can schedule another meeting to address others that are not as critical. Gather any data, observations, academic records, work samples, or staff communication that will support your advocacy points. Organize them in a way that will support easy access for you at the meeting. When you receive the IEP meeting notice from the school, take note of who will be in attendance. If there are other staff you would like to include in the meeting, you can reach out to request that they be invited. Next slide. As you plan to meet with the IEP team, consider expectations and assumptions about learning and how they may be impacting your child's educational progress. There are times when a child may be viewed as non-compliant because our bias or assumptions are based only on what we see at the surface. For students with disability needs that impact physical, cognitive, developmental, social, or behavioral capacities, it's important to consider why the child isn't meeting an expectation. This slide highlights the complex set of skills and processes required to complete what some may consider a simple task. For a student with disabilities, it may not be simple at all if they haven't yet been given the support and opportunity to learn and practice the skills they need to meet an expectation. Behaviors are often the result. They're trying the best they can, but they simply aren't yet equipped to succeed. Taking time to explore why a child may not be meeting an expectation allows us to understand them better. It also empowers us to consider how we can use our insights to build skills, provide opportunities for practice, and offer services, accommodations, and modifications to help the student succeed. This may include modeling expected behavior, helping the student learn to ask for help, prompting a student with the next step, or checking in after instructions to verify that they understand. Next slide. Behaviors often signal that a student's needs may not yet be adequately understood or that the supports in place are not working for them. We also see behaviors when a student is working on developing skills, but they have not yet achieved mastery. If you notice that your child is resisting going to school, refusing to do schoolwork, disengaging from friendships or class participation, speaking negatively about themselves or about school, exhibiting frustration or explosive behaviors, experiencing changes to sleep patterns or appetite at home, these behaviors may be an indication of a child who is struggling to meet expectations. Rather than focusing on the behaviors themselves, it can be helpful for the IEP team to discuss what changes may need to be made to the IEP to help the child develop the skills. The team may also consider gathering additional data to better understand the student's needs. This can include observations, interviews, or additional assessments. It's also important for the team to remember that none of us make progress without setbacks and mistakes. If a student reverts to a behavior they haven't been exhibiting for a while, it doesn't necessarily mean they aren't making progress. A setback is an opportunity to think again about triggers, the student's environment, and revisiting skill development and practice. In any of these cases, you may want to request an IEP team meeting to discuss your concerns with the team members. Next slide. So you have an IEP meeting scheduled. Let's talk about some strategies to empower your advocacy in team meeting conversations. First, come to the meeting prepared to listen. This sounds basic, but if you've been to a few IEP meetings by now, you know this can sometimes be difficult. Why is listening so important? It gives you the opportunity to gather information about your child and to understand the insights and perspectives of others who observe and work with your child in the school environment. The team may have been considering challenges that you're observing and are prepared to share ideas about how to better support your child at the meeting. Planning and writing down the concerns you hope to address ahead of the meeting helps ensure you stay focused and are prepared to communicate questions and concerns clearly. Communication in an honest, calm, and respectful manner. Keep in mind that neither you nor the professionals have all the answers. The special education system is designed to ensure the team must work together to find solutions. Disagreement is normal and is in fact an important part of working together to find solutions. If you'd like resources on how to communicate with when team dynamics become stressful, feel free to reach out to Pacer and we can help. Don't be afraid to restate your question if you're not heard the first time. You should never feel guilty, embarrassed, or reluctant to ask a question or to assertively pursue appropriate services for your child. This is your role as an IEP team member, and it's your right under the special education process. Take note of agreements reached about changes to your child's IEP or behavior plan. Keep in mind that you can invite a friend or relative to be a note taker at the meeting if it helps you stay focused on the conversation. If the team has refused a request that you've made regarding your child's IEP or behavior plan, ask that they write their refusal in a prior written notice. At the end of the meeting, it can be helpful to verbally summarize agreements and next steps. Following up with an email summary to ensure everyone is in agreement about what was discussed and decided creates a written record for future reference. And I'm going to let Jeannie continue from here. Next slide.
Oops, excuse me, Karen. I had my sound on mute. So this is Jeannie. I'm back to present the remainder of the content that we have for today. So on this slide, you're going to see some questions that you might want to consider when meeting to develop or amend the IEP. Those questions might include whether or not there are expectations that your child is struggling to meet. If so, are there skills they might need help developing so they can meet those expectations? What accommodations, modifications, or supports might support their progress? How will instruction be provided to help your child build and practice those needed skills? Next slide. So how can you advocate? Let's quickly review tips for parent participation on this slide before we move on to the next topic. So keep good records. Save IEP progress reports, behavior or incident reports, test scores, notes from teachers, your own communications to the school, notes you kept for yourself, copies of the IEP, and the most recent special education evaluation in your file. One of your very best tools for advocacy is to use data and use records to bring to the teams. A lot of parents like to organize those into either a hard copy or an online binder that they're able to access easily when they're at meetings and use to prepare for meetings. Before a meeting, identify priority needs and concerns you'd like to address. Send agenda items you'd like to see included in the meeting to the case manager ahead of time. This provides opportunity for the team members to come to the meeting prepared with some ideas. Sending your agenda a day or more before the meeting may also help to ensure adequate time is reserved for discussion of your questions and concerns. I know that a lot of parents have the experience of coming to a meeting and often the time is used up by the existing agenda and they don't have time to cover their concerns. So if you send that ahead of time, that can help give the team the heads up that they need to plan time for you to discuss those questions and concerns. Consider bringing someone else to the meeting with you. Somebody in the chat had sent a question about this. So this can be someone who works with your child and can contribute input, such as an outside therapist or other professional. You could also consider bringing a friend or a family member to be an extra set of listening ears and to record notes. Sometimes just having someone with you that you trust sitting alongside you can help you stay focused on your priority topics. When emotions run high, which they sometimes do, being accompanied by someone you know has your child's and your own best interest at heart can bolster confidence in your advocacy and ensure that you're able to accurately hear what is said. Use email to document or express concerns. When communications with the school are strained, we suggest that you write a draft, leave it for a while, and return to review it 24 hours later to make sure it reflects what you want to say and how you want to say it. I really like that strategy. It was something that I used when my kids were in school. Sometimes just taking a moment to write everything out, put all your thoughts down, leaving it for a while, returning to it allows you to kind of weed through which parts are emotional, what needs to be said, how it needs to be said, so that you're able to send a much more effective piece of communication. Participate in meetings with full confidence that your insights and recommendations are as important as everyone else at the IEP table. Finally, if you disagree with a proposal or refusal from the IEP team, keep in mind that you have the right to formally state your disagreement. Be sure to get any proposed changes to the IEP or district refusals of your request regarding the IEP written into a prior written notice. And we'll talk a little bit more about prior written notice later. I know Karen had alluded to that earlier. Next slide. So let's shift our focus a bit now and consider some examples of student supports and interventions that are grounded in the principles of wellness and recovery. The Substance Abuse Mental Health Service Administration, or SAMHSA, has researched ways to help individuals improve their health and wellness. The principles they've identified here can help you guide planning and advocacy for your child's mental health needs at school. The framework might prompt the following questions for you. Does the team believe your child can make friends, improve their schoolwork, graduate, go on to post-secondary education, or obtain gainful employment? Think about what you believe your child is capable of achieving. You want to communicate that to the school so that they can share that vision. Is your child supported by a highly individualized plan that emphasizes their strengths? Do they have a network of people engaged to provide hope, encouragement, and support, including those who can suggest strategies and resources for change? If your child has experienced trauma, Are there trauma-informed services and supports to foster safety and trust? Is your child respected, and do they feel accepted for who they are? Does their system of support include family and community? Has your child been asked how they would like to gain independence, make decisions, reach their goals? Are their own values, traditions, and beliefs considered? Schools, and sometimes parents too, can get into the habit of planning around and for a student without asking them for their ideas and recommendations. Our children are our very best resource to determine what will work to effectively support them at school. You may have a student who is very capable of communicating what those needs and preferences are, what works and what doesn't. For other students, that may be more challenging, but you as the parent are well equipped to discern based on what you're seeing with your child, what you feel may be working and what isn't. So there are various ways to assess how your child may be communicating, what works and what doesn't work for them. So in relation to wellness and mental health, bring your ideas and those of your student to the team. Share examples of what works well for them and what doesn't at home and in other environments. I like to use the phrase paint a picture when I'm talking with parents, because I think oftentimes the more clearly you can describe or share an example of what works well for your student, the easier it is for the team to understand what you're asking and for them to then determine how they might translate that into the school environment. So use these examples to ask that team to explore how insights, supports, and strategies can work in the school environment and be included in the IEP. Next slide. Okay, examples of some of these strategies. Next slide, Jamie. So positive behavioral interventions and supports is an example of a tiered framework many schools use for supporting behavioral, academic, social, emotional, and mental health of students at school. In the PBIS framework, the first step is to identify broad behavioral expectations, such as be respectful, be responsible, or be safe. PBIS must clarify what these mean. How do I, as a student, know if I'm being respectful or responsible? These clarifications must be specific and easy for students to recognize and follow. The third step is to teach meaningful responses if expected rules or behaviors are not followed and model their usage. The last step is to affirm positive behavior when it occurs in a manner that works for the student. Not all strategies for affirming behavior work for all students. Consider what works for your child when working with the team. When students are unable to follow rules, our priority must be to consider why, as we discussed earlier. First, assume that the student cannot yet do what is asked of them before you conclude that they won't do it. Did they understand the expectation? Have they mastered the skills they need to succeed? Are there other factors happening in the student's life that should be taken into account? Considering the why behind behavior challenges provides us with the opportunity to learn about the student's emotions and practice meeting expectations together in the context of supportive relationship, rather than hoping that punitive consequences will result in behavior changes. MDE states, PBIS teams must establish clearly defined outcomes that relate to academic and social behavior, systems that support staff practices, practices that support student success, and data to guide decision-making. You can ask for clarification of expectations from your district at any time. If your child has difficulty understanding expectations or lacks the skills and tools to meet them, it's the role of the IEP team to support them so they can be successful. Next slide. Establishing continuity for a student between home and school creates opportunities for the child to learn and practice new skills in different environments. Applying PBIS or other principles and strategies across environments creates a sense of predictability for the student, which can lower anxiety and frustration. You can work with your child's IEP team to discuss ways to establish routines and practices at home based on what they're learning at school. Next slide. So this slide represents an example of PBIS expectations. In one column, you see what the example school expects for distance learning days, because we all still have some of those days on snow days, things like that, and for in-person learning. You'll often see PBIS expectations posted in school hallways and in the classrooms to help remind students of the rules and how they're expected to follow them. Next slide, Jamie. All right, navigating IEP team disagreements when they arise. This last section of today's presentation will provide a brief overview of due process options in special education. So what is due process, you might ask? Due process in special education refers to the rights and structured procedures available to parents and school districts to resolve disagreements regarding a child's educational needs when they arise. Let's talk now about how you can use the special education process to resolve disagreements with the school. And before we dive into this section, I just want to say we're going to talk through a lot of processes here, a lot of protections that are provided under special education law. This can feel like a ton of information and it can start to feel really overwhelming. So as we go through it, just keep in mind that you can reach out to us at any time if you have questions about this now or in the future regarding your own student. We also have a lot of great resources on these topics on our PACER YouTube page as well as our website. All right, Jamie, let's dive in. Next slide, sorry. Okay, prior written notice. We're finally going to address the whole prior written notice we've been talking about. So it is otherwise known as a PWN. So you will have seen this in an IEP meeting or at an evaluation planning meeting. You may have heard it referred to by a PWN. The PWN is the important tool you can use to exert your rights in the special education process. Anytime the district proposes or refuses to initiate or change the identification, evaluation, educational placement, or the provision of a free and appropriate public education for a student, so anytime they propose to change anything about your child's IEP, the district must provide parents with a prior written notice. The prior written notice must state the actions being proposed and or refused by the district, the reasons for their proposal or refusal, other options that were considered by the team, and the data they're using to support their decision. The PWN must be in writing. While an initial evaluation and IEP require your signature before services are provided, successive proposals, so proposals after your student's initial evaluation and initial IEP, have a 14 calendar day timeline from the date you received the prior written notice to state your agreement or disagreement. If you disagree with the district's proposal or refusal and don't sign and return the PWN within the 14-day window, there is implied consent and the district's decision may go into effect whether you agree with it or not. To disagree, you must object in writing using the PWN and return it to the school within 14 calendar days to notify the team that you disagree. So I typically recommend to parents that anytime they receive a piece of paper from the school, either hard copy or email that says prior written notice or PWN at the top, check the date, make sure the date matches the date that you received the document, and then write on your calendar 14 calendar days from the date that you received it so you don't forget. And then you have that 14-day time frame to think about what the district is proposing or refusing and to decide if you agree or not. And that's a time that you can call us at Pacer too and talk through any questions that you might have about that. Okay, next slide, Jamie. So let's say you received a PWN proposing a change to the IEP and you don't agree. You don't want that change to happen. What do? One option is to use the prior written notice to state your disagreement and request another meeting with the IEP team to see if you can resolve differences. If you feel another IEP meeting may not be productive, you might use the prior written notice to request what's called a conciliation conference. The conciliation conference is unique to Minnesota. It typically includes a higher level of administrative staff, such as the director of special education or a special education supervisor. This meeting doesn't require the full IEP team, but does require someone in attendance from the district who has authority to make changes or resolve disagreements. Conciliation provides you with the opportunity to talk about areas of disagreement and share your ideas for what you feel your child needs at school. The conciliation conference must be held within 10 days of your request and is provided at no cost to you. Within 5 days after the final conciliation conference, the district must provide you with a written memo describing the district's final offer of services. This may include changes to the IEP and another consent form. Next slide. Mediation is another meeting option available to resolve disagreements between school staff and parents. Topics addressed in mediation might include disability identification, evaluation, placement, manifestation determination, interim alternative placement, provision of free and appropriate public education, or tensions in communications between the family and school. So for example, you might have attended a conciliation conference, but you and the district are still in disagreement over the school's refusal to evaluate your child. Or you believe the school's evaluation includes data that meets the state entrance criteria for special education services, but the district didn't qualify them for an IEP. Mediation is voluntary for both parties and is provided at no cost to parents. A neutral mediator is assigned by the Minnesota Department of Education Dispute Resolution Team. The mediator's role is to facilitate effective problem-solving conversations. They help ensure parties clearly communicate their concerns, find common ground, offer possible solutions, and support the development of agreements. As agreements are reached, the mediator develops a document that, once signed by both parties, becomes binding. Mediation may also be used in lieu of a resolution session when a due process complaint has been filed. We'll talk more about this in a moment. Next slide, Jamie. A facilitated team meeting is another voluntary dispute resolution option. The objective of this meeting is to address the development or amendment of a student's IEP. It can be requested by the school or the parent. A facilitator is assigned by the Minnesota Department of Education to facilitate the meeting, promote effective communication, and ensure members stay on task and focus on the child. The facilitator can help clarify questions and address conflicts as they arise during the meeting. A facilitated team meeting might be a good option if you continue to disagree with the content of your child's IEP. These IEP content areas might include the present levels, goals and objectives, services, accommodations, modifications, testing, assistive technology, transportation, transition supports and services, least restrictive environment, or a student's behavior plan. In a facilitated team meeting, the IEP is written during the meeting, and the team takes time to address each concern throughout the IEP. The objective of a facilitated team meeting is to produce a completed IEP to which the school and parents have agreed. Parents still have the option to disagree with the proposed IEP using the prior written notice within 14 calendar days. Next slide. Another option available to parents is the right to file a due process complaint to be heard before an administrative law judge from the Office of Administrative Hearings. Reasons you might file a due process complaint include issues related to disability identification, evaluation, placement, manifestation determination, which can be filed as an expedited due process complaint, or the provision of free and appropriate public education. The parent or district must request the hearing within 2 years of the date the party knew or should have known about the matter. The party filing a due process complaint must provide a copy of the complaint to the other party and to the Minnesota Department of Education. MDE will forward the request to the Office of Administrative Hearings. The Office of Administrative Hearings will determine if the case has standing and will be heard. If a parent files a due process complaint and requests a hearing, the school district must arrange for a resolution meeting within 15 calendar days to attempt to resolve the issues prior to a hearing. If both parties agree, the hearing may be waived in lieu of the resolution meeting. If resolution is reached prior to the hearing, an agreement is drafted and signed by all parties, which constitutes a legally binding document. If after the 30-day resolution period the complaint is not resolved, a due process hearing may occur. Parents should be aware that districts will usually have an attorney for a due process hearing. While it's not required, guidance or representation for parents from an attorney can be very helpful to navigate this legal process. Once the hearing is complete, a final legally binding document is drafted by the hearing office within 45 days following the expiration of the 30-day resolution period. There's an appeal process available to both parties if they aren't satisfied with the final decision. Additional information can be found on the MDE website or by speaking with someone in the MDE Dispute Resolution Department. In 2020, MDE reported that of the 24 complaints brought to them, only one went to a hearing. Parents are encouraged to utilize the collaborative options of conciliation conference, mediation, or facilitated team meeting processes to resolve disagreements before proceeding to a hearing. Those alternative dispute resolution options, conciliation meeting, and facilitated team meeting, those are used all the time. They are part of your protected options to resolve disputes. You have a right to conciliation. Mediation and facilitated team meetings are voluntary, so you can file to request one. The school can say no, and the same is true vice versa. If they request one, you can also say no, but they can be just extremely effective and very often used ways for families and schools to work together to resolve disagreements. All right, next slide. If you have concerns that the school district didn't follow or is not following federal or state special education laws, regulations, or rules, you have the right to file a complaint with the Department of Education. The complaint must be in writing and should include a description of the violation and any facts or data you have to support your claim. The alleged violation must have occurred within the last calendar year of the date MDE receives your complaint. The dispute resolution team at MDE will investigate your complaint and issue a final decision within 60 days. This may include a corrective action plan for the district, which would be sent to the parents and to the school. A complaint investigation and mediation can be requested at the same time. If a complaint investigation and a due process hearing are requested to resolve the same issues, the complaint will be put on hold until the due process hearing is complete. Next slide. We're getting close to the end here. If you believe that your child or you, with or without a disability, has experienced discrimination based on race, religion, disability, national origin, sex, marital status, familial status, sexual orientation, or gender identity, a civil rights complaint may be filed with the Minnesota Department of Human Rights or with the U.S. Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights. If the filing is for disability discrimination, the individual must meet the state definition of having a disability under the Minnesota Human Rights Act. Under this definition, a disabled person is anyone who has a physical, sensory, or mental impairment which materially limits one or more major life activities and has a record of such impairment or is regarded as having such an impairment. So this may include students with an IEP or a 504 plan. All right, next slide. So we spoke earlier about effective communication with the school. We've also talked about options for resolving disagreements, but when trust between parents and school staff has been broken or team relationships are strained, resolution may require some additional efforts. The first step to restoring trust is to acknowledge that it's been disrupted. Sometimes this is the hardest step, but positive change isn't likely to occur until someone steps up to identify that there's an issue, and preferably to do so without assigning blame. An example of acknowledgement when you meet with the team might be to simply say, "We've had disagreements, and I recognize that sometimes those disagreements have resulted in stressful conversations. I want to acknowledge that we're all here because we want to find ways to support my child. We have this in common, so I'd like to spend time today sharing ideas for how we might work together to improve our communication and planning strategies." So what might addressing these concerns look like? Define action steps to mend relationships and establish clear plans for future communication. Ask that the IEP team work with you to clarify communication expectations. Ask that plans be shared in writing to ensure everyone understands agreements and next steps. When it comes to IEP planning, hold individuals on the team accountable for following through on agreements by asking, "Who will complete this next step?" Or, "When will we meet again to review the data?" Once you've established agreements for moving forward, plan a time to meet again in a month or two, assess your progress together, and adapt the communication plan as needed. Try starting team meetings by reviewing what's working for the school and for you regarding communication changes that have been made. Starting conversations with a positive focus sets a productive tone for the meeting and is a powerful tool to rebuild trust and improve collaborative efforts. Trust can be rebuilt by acknowledging challenges and agreeing to changes that create a new experience of effective communication and productive problem solving. All right, next slide. This quote seems particularly appropriate for what we've discussed today. You're working as a team together with the school staff to meet the needs of your child. Each member of the team brings unique and important skills, experiences, and knowledge to the table. As the parent, you know your child better than anyone else. Educational professionals bring their years of experience and training to educational planning conversations. You won't always agree, and that's okay. Disagreement is an important and productive part of the process of developing an educational program that meets your child's needs. Planning to support your child with disabilities at school requires a lot of hard work, but maintaining a collaborative mindset of listening, asking questions, and openly sharing perspectives will empower the team to move forward toward an appropriate plan for your child's educational program. Next slide. All right, so this, as I said before, has been a lot of information presented very quickly. You're probably feeling cross-eyed by now. We want to encourage you to reach out to PACER to speak with an advocate, and we'd be happy to help you navigate these topics. You'll be receiving a survey on our training today, and we'd really appreciate your time spent providing some feedback for us. Next and final slide, I believe. So we want to end by inviting you to our Raise a Glass event coming up on September 18th from 5 to 8 p.m. at Wooden Hill Brewing Company in Edina. Raise a Glass is a great way to enjoy an evening out, to meet or reconnect with the PACER community, and to learn about our programs and resources. Everyone is welcome, including those under 21 years old. The event includes games, snacks, and a variety of delicious drinks, including non-alcoholic options. It will be a good time, so we hope to see you there. The final slide. Karen, before we end, is there anything that you want to add or anything that you want to highlight from questions or anything that came up?
Sorry, I was muted. There were a few questions. Because I just want to mention, because this presentation takes the full hour to present, we're not holding a separate Q&A session like we do with some of our other presentations. There were a couple questions that I did send answers to. But like I said in the beginning, feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help. If specific questions come up or you need help navigating a situation with your child. And we thank everyone for joining us.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I will end today's webinar.
Thanks, Jamie.